Was up, beautiful souls? This message has been coming in pieces for maybe the last 2 days, but I think the final piece just kind of came in, and it's amazing how spirit works. And I hope the way it's coming to pieces with me and the way I'm hoping I can articulate it will help you fill in the pieces that may be missing for you. Hence, spirit's pretty miraculous this way. The first thing that came in was something very strong about spiritual guidance and even of spiritual protection. What's interesting is that when we are being spiritually guided or protected, sometimes the synchronicities scream very loud. Sometimes it's very easy. However, sometimes the divine guidance or protection can actually be that which we would rather not see or know. It's ignorance can be bliss. But if we're all honest with ourselves, honesty, truth is the true liberation, right? So what is with the divine guidance protection? Somebody definitely is being divinely protected. I feel protected. And with protection comes guidance, right? The next piece that came to my mind a couple hours later was, if anybody's familiar with the tarot, the traditional tarot, was the Two of Swords. That was the image that came to my mind. So the traditional tarot with the Two Swords can basically represent hard decisions, feeling blinded. Which choice is the best? Either choice you make is going to be hard. However, when I perceive the Two of Swords, she crosses her chest with the swords. As an intuitive, I read that as she's protecting her heart. But she's blindfolded. And many have speculated before that if she just took off the blindfold, she could see. Now, if anybody else is familiar with the way the tarot is set up, each suit tells a storyline. And the way I perceive it, the next card that would follow the Suit of Swords would be the Three of Swords, which indicates heartbreak. Therefore, I can't help but think, regardless of the choice that's made, it still ends up to heartbreak. And what do we do as humans when we are forced to make a choice of the lesser two evils? Human nature will have a tendency to choose the more easier route, the less difficult route. What doesn't cost or require so much energy that's already being expended at the choice of trying to make one, right? But then there comes back that divine protection. And I'm hearing intervention right now. Guidance. What if she placed the Two Swords down and took off the blindfold? Does that mean that she puts her heart at risk? And we're just talking about the suit. It's not necessarily about gender. But if she puts the swords down, she puts her heart at vulnerability. because it's not being protected. But in doing so, she gains a clear sight. She sees what's going on around her. What's also very interesting, I did a research on this 1 year, one of my semesters, in regards to the psychology of tarot. And it's really hard to find scholar journals on that of ESP or supernatural, because, obviously they want to be able to define or have concrete, tangible evidence to something that they can claim to be scientific. However, they also can't deny what they can't grasp. And amongst my research, there was one gentleman that talked about how the tarot works, which makes it such a useful tool. Essentially, and he said many people use the tarot cards, but you can literally use anything. And this is how we become innovative. This is how we think. This is how we can expand on things. Therefore, it doesn't have to be a stack of cards so much, but we could pick something out in the room and formulate progressive thinking versus our traditional heuristic old patterns, like the formulas, so forth. So how does that intertwine with this? Divine protection, divine guidance, Two of Swords, blindfolded, protecting heart, lesser of two evils, doomed for heartbreak regardless. But then it feels like the Hangman, in that, is it to gain a new perception? Divine guidance. Take off the blindfold. Divine protection. Your heart is protected. How do we think outside, beyond just the two swords? The lesser of the two evils. Is there another option? I spoke about this before, guys. If I asked you to look at a wall, take a moment and look at the wall in front of you. Tell me what you see. The typical brain will pick out and zoom in on the first few things directly in front of them. However, very rarely do we see the whole wall at once. It's the integration of both left and right brain that actually helps us communicate with the other side of the realm. Hence, that of what they were saying in my studies, that it's not necessarily about the cards, but to be able to have a problem, find something else to intertwine, and see how, if you added something else to the equation or subtracted something to the equation, how would that concept then be defined? How radically could it change? Is it possible that somebody is stuck in a very hard spot, trying to gain insight, feeling trapped, feel like there's no other option other than A or B, without hurting their heart? However, with the Three of Swords that are coming next, regardless, you could end up with a hurt heart anyway. Everything we do in this world is a gamble. There's no definite. Because not only do we imply our own free will, but we have that of others. And we're all interplayed, all interlocked. So could it be to gain a newer perception, to trust in who you are and who's with you, and this is coming in strong right now, to have self-love is to know who you are, but furthermore, what you want. How does that all intertwine? Do you dare put down the swords to be vulnerable? Because you may be looking at her heart regardless, and feel like even of the two choices, even if you took the easier of the two, still doesn't lead you to what you want. But if you know what you want, because you have self-love, to know thyself is to know what you want. It's a big fat riddle, but all very possible. You don't have to go forward into the heartbreak. Maybe the answer is to be vulnerable and to take off the blindfold. You owe that to yourself. You owe it to yourself to see what choice you're going to make. Divine protection doesn't always come easy. But like any rescue mission, it'll lead you out of the troubled water. You'll make the right choice. I have so much love for you guys.